The notification pinged on my phone at 11:47 a.m. while I was reviewing quarterly reports in my cramped office above the used bookstore. LinkedIn notification. Rebecca Williams shared a new post. I clicked on it, already knowing what I'd find. Rebecca had been on a social media tear lately, documenting every milestone of Williams Tech's meteoric rise. This time, it was a professionally shot photo of her standing in front of her company's sleek glass headquarters, arms crossed, wearing that confident smile she'd perfected for investor meetings. The caption read, "Celebrating 5 years of family success without the DV. Rocket, sometimes you have to leave people behind to reach your full potential. Williams Tech just closed our Series C at a $400 million valuation. Grateful for the family members who believed in the vision from day one. Hashtag entrepreneurship, hashtag family business, hashtag tech success, hashtag growth mindset." 847 likes and counting. Comments flooding in from industry leaders, fellow entrepreneurs and family members. All praising Rebecca's vision, her leadership, her incredible success story. I scrolled through the responses. Inspirational. You've built something amazing, Rebecca. Mom. So proud of my brilliant daughter. Flex biceps. Did. Rebecca Williams is a force of nature. Honored to be part of this journey. Uncle Jim. Can't wait to see what you build next. The Williams family legacy continues. Cousin Mark. I clicked the heart icon and typed my own response. Congratulations. So happy to see your success. 3 minutes later, Rebecca had liked my comment. 20 minutes after that, she deleted it. The irony wasn't lost on me. The deadweight she was referring to was sitting in a 200-square-foot office, wearing a 5-year-old sweater, eating a peanut butter sandwich for lunch. While she stood in her million-dollar headquarters, celebrating a $400 million valuation funded entirely by my money. My phone buzzed again. Text from Mom. Did you see Rebecca's post? Isn't it wonderful how well she's doing? I replied, yes, very impressive. Mom, I wish you could find something you're passionate about like Rebecca has. She's really made something of herself. The thing was, I had found something I was passionate about. I was passionate about identifying undervalued technology companies and providing growth capital to help them scale. I'd been doing it for 8 years, building a portfolio worth just over $3 billion across various investment vehicles and shell companies. What I wasn't passionate about was taking credit for it. Rebecca's success story was compelling and she told it well. Fresh out of MIT with a computer science degree, she'd identified a gap in the enterprise software market and built Williams Tech from her garage. She'd attracted top talent, secured major clients, and scaled the company from startup to unicorn in just 5 years. What she left out of her story was where the funding had come from. Williams Tech had raised capital through 3 funding rounds, a $5 million seed round, a $25 million Series A, and a $175 million Series B. Rebecca owned 47% of the company, giving her a paper net worth of approximately $188 million. The lead investor in all 3 rounds was Meridian Ventures, a private equity firm that specialized in enterprise software companies. Meridian had provided $205 million in total funding to Williams Tech, making them the largest shareholder after Rebecca herself. What Rebecca didn't know was that Meridian Ventures was a subsidiary of Pacific Capital Group, which was owned by Cascade Holdings, which was controlled by a trust I'd established during graduate school at Stanford. I was Rebecca's anonymous investor. I was the source of every dollar that had built her empire. I'd first identified Williams Tech during their seed round, when Rebecca was pitching to anyone who would listen. Her technology was solid, her market analysis was thorough, and her business model was scalable. She was also my sister, though she didn't know I was evaluating her company. The decision to invest hadn't been personal. Williams Tech was exactly the kind of opportunity one looked for. Strong fundamentals, experienced leadership, large addressable market, clear competitive advantages. The fact that Rebecca was family had actually made me more cautious, not less. I'd conducted extra due diligence to ensure I wasn't letting emotion cloud my judgment. But as the company grew and Rebecca's attitude toward me deteriorated, the investment had become more complicated. It started small. Comments about my lack of ambition, when I chose to work part-time at the literacy nonprofit instead of pursuing a traditional career. Jokes about my modest lifestyle, when I showed up to family gatherings in my old Honda Civic while she drove her new Tesla. Then it escalated. Rebecca began positioning herself as the family success story, the one who'd inherited Dad's entrepreneurial drive while I'd inherited Mom's content to coast through life approach. She started giving interviews about the importance of surrounding yourself with growth-minded people and distancing yourself from those who don't share your vision. The deadweight comments had started about 2 years ago, always carefully indirect but unmistakably targeted. Sometimes family members hold you back without meaning to. Not everyone is cut out for the startup lifestyle. You have to be willing to outgrow people who don't evolve with you. Last Christmas had been the breaking point. Rebecca had stood up during dinner to give a toast about Williams Tech's success, specifically thanking the family members who had supported her vision from the beginning, while pointedly avoiding eye contact with me. She'd concluded with, "Success requires making difficult choices about who gets to be part of your journey." Now, 6 months later, she was posting about family success without the deadweight to her 15,000 LinkedIn followers, publicly positioning herself as the visionary entrepreneur who'd overcome the burden of unsupportive family members. I opened my laptop and logged into the secure portal for Pacific Capital Group. My investment dashboard showed the current Williams Tech position: $205 million in deployed capital across 3 funding rounds, representing a 52% ownership stake in the company through various investment vehicles. I pulled up Rebecca's most recent pitch deck, the one she'd presented to Meridian Ventures 3 months ago when requesting the Series C funding that would take Williams Tech to their $400 million valuation. Slide 12 was titled Family Legacy, featuring photos of her with Dad at his old accounting firm, Uncle Jim at his small business, and various other family members who'd inspired her entrepreneurial journey. I wasn't in any of the photos. The irony was that Rebecca's entire business philosophy was built around the importance of smart capital allocation and strategic partnerships. She'd written blog posts about how finding the right investors was crucial to startup success. She'd spoken at conferences about the value of having aligned financial partners who understood your vision. She just didn't know that her primary aligned financial partner was the sister she'd publicly dismissed as deadweight. I scrolled through more of her recent LinkedIn posts. There was one from last week about surrounding yourself with people who elevate your thinking. Another from 2 weeks ago about the courage to leave limiting relationships behind. And one from last month with the caption, "Some people are content with small dreams. Entrepreneurs aren't." Each post had hundreds of likes and dozens of comments from industry leaders praising Rebecca's wisdom and insight. She'd built a personal brand around being the visionary entrepreneur who'd overcome obstacles and unsupportive people to achieve massive success. The obstacle she'd overcome was me. The unsupportive person holding her back was the same person writing the checks that funded her success. I opened a new browser tab and logged into my secure messaging system. My wealth management team at Blackstone Capital was available 24/7 for high-priority portfolio decisions. "Need to schedule a call regarding Williams Tech position," I typed. "Considering strategic changes to our investment structure." The response came back within 10 minutes. "Available for call at your convenience. Current position is $205 million across Series AC funding rounds. Company performance remains strong. Is this related to the recent Series C valuation?" I scheduled the call for 3 p.m., then spent the next few hours reviewing Williams Tech's financial statements, market position and growth projections. From a purely investment perspective, the company was performing exceptionally well. Revenue was growing at 85% year-over-year, profit margins were expanding, and they just signed their largest enterprise client ever. Rebecca was, objectively, an excellent CEO. She'd built a valuable company, made smart strategic decisions and created significant value for investors. The fact that she was using that success to publicly humiliate me was a separate issue from her business competence. At 3 p.m. I called my portfolio manager at Blackstone. "Ms. Chin," Marcus Richardson answered. "Thank you for making time today. I understand you want to discuss Williams Tech." "I'm considering liquidating our position," I said. There was a pause. "The entire position? That's $205 million in deployed capital. I understand the magnitude. May I ask what's driving this decision?" "The company's fundamentals remain very strong." I considered how to explain this. It's a strategic alignment issue. With the management team? Something like that. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Ms. Chen, as your fiduciary advisor, I need to point out that Williams Tech is one of our highest performing investments. The Series C valuation represents a 4.2x return on our Series A investment. If they go public next year as planned, we're projecting returns in the 8-10x range. I understand the financial implications. And you still want to liquidate? I want to understand what liquidation would look like. What are our options? Well, Marcus said, we could sell our position to another investor, though finding someone willing to take on $205 million in secondary shares might take time. Or we could exercise our liquidation preferences under the shareholder agreement. What would that involve? We'd trigger a forced sale of the company. As the majority shareholder, we have the right to demand immediate return of invested capital plus accrued interest. Given Williams Tech's current cash position, they'd be unable to meet that obligation. So they'd have to find new investors or face bankruptcy. Yes. Without our continued backing, they don't have enough cash flow to service their existing obligations. What about Rebecca's personal exposure? Marcus pulled up more documents. Ms. Williams has personal guarantees on approximately $15 million in company debt. She'd also lose her equity stake, which is currently worth about $188 million on paper. So she'd go from multimillionaire to bankrupt. Essentially, yes. I thanked Marcus and told him I'd get back to him with a decision. Then I sat in my small office, looking out at the street below where people were going about their normal lives, unaware that I was contemplating a decision that would destroy my sister's empire. The rational part of my brain knew this was a bad financial decision. Williams Tech was a solid investment with excellent growth prospects. Rebecca was building real value, creating jobs and solving legitimate market problems. Destroying the company would hurt innocent employees and customers, not just Rebecca. But the emotional part of my brain was tired of being called deadweight by the person whose success I'd funded. My phone buzzed with another LinkedIn notification. Rebecca had posted again, this time sharing an article about toxic family dynamics with her own commentary. Sometimes the people who claim to love you are actually the ones holding you back. Building a successful company means having the courage to prioritize growth over guilt. #boundaries, #growth, #entrepreneurship. 456 likes in the first hour. I opened the comments section. More praise for Rebecca's wisdom and strength. More congratulations on her success. More validation for her decision to distance herself from negative influences. Then I saw a comment from our cousin Sarah. So inspiring. I've been dealing with similar issues with family members who don't understand my goals. It's hard but necessary to leave some people behind. Rebecca had replied, exactly. You can't let other people's limitations become your limitations. Sometimes family is the biggest obstacle to overcome. I stared at that comment for a long time. Sometimes family is the biggest obstacle to overcome. I was the obstacle. The sister who'd quietly provided every dollar that built her company was the limitation she'd courageously overcome. I opened my secure messaging app and typed a message to Marcus. Please proceed with liquidation of Williams Tech position. Exercise liquidation preferences immediately. Understood. This will trigger bankruptcy proceedings within 30 days. Are you certain you want to proceed? Yes. I'll need written authorization for a transaction of this magnitude. You'll have it within the hour. I drafted the authorization, digitally signed it and sent it through our encrypted system. By tomorrow morning, Rebecca's lawyers would receive notice that Meridian Ventures was exercising their liquidation preferences and demanding immediate return of all invested capital. Williams Tech would have 30 days to come up with $205 million or face bankruptcy. But first I had one more LinkedIn post to make. I opened my personal profile, the one with 127 connections, mostly former colleagues from the nonprofit and a few Stanford classmates. No blue checkmark, no impressive job title, no professional headshot. I typed, "Congratulations to my sister Rebecca Williams on her incredible success with Williams Tech. As someone who has followed her journey closely, I can say she's built something truly impressive. Proud to have been part of the story from the beginning. #family first, #proud sister." I tagged Williams Tech in Rebecca's profile, then hit post. Within minutes the comments started coming in. Rebecca is lucky to have such a supportive sister. Family support is so important for entrepreneurs. Beautiful to see siblings celebrating each other's success. Rebecca liked the post but didn't comment. 20 minutes later she deleted my tag. An hour after that my phone rang. Rebecca's name on the caller ID. Anna, she said when I answered. What was that LinkedIn post about? I was congratulating you on your success. The Series C announcement was impressive. You don't usually post about business stuff. I thought this was worth sharing. I'm proud of what you've built. There was a pause. Thank you. That's unexpected. Why is it unexpected? You know why. We haven't exactly been close lately. You've been busy building your company. I understand. Anna, can I ask you something? Of course. Do you ever think about what you want to do with your life? I mean, really do. I considered this question. I think I'm doing it. Working part-time at a literacy nonprofit? Living in that tiny apartment? Anna, you're smart. You could do so much more. What if I told you I was already doing more? What do you mean? What if I told you I had other projects? Other interests? Rebecca laughed. Like what? Anna, I'm not trying to be mean, but you live like a college student. You drive a car from 2015. You shop at thrift stores. What if I told you those were choices, not limitations? Then I'd say you're making very strange choices. What if I told you I was an investor? An investor? Anna, you can barely afford to contribute to family gifts. What if I told you I was your investor? The line went quiet. What are you talking about? Rebecca finally said. I'm talking about Meridian Ventures. Your lead investor. Your primary source of funding. Anna, that's not funny. I'm not trying to be funny. Meridian Ventures is a major private equity firm. They manage billions in assets. I know. I control them. That's impossible. Why is it impossible? Because you work at a nonprofit. You live in a studio apartment. You can't even afford a decent car. I can afford whatever I want, Rebecca. I choose to live simply. Anna, stop. This isn't funny anymore. Check your email. Your lawyers should be receiving some documents tomorrow. What documents? Liquidation preferences. Meridian Ventures is exercising our right to demand immediate return of invested capital. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the $205 million I've invested in Williams Tech over the past 5 years. I want it back. Anna, you're scaring me. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with me is that I'm tired of being called deadweight by the person whose success I funded. I never called you deadweight. Family success without the deadweight. LinkedIn post. This morning. 847 likes. Rebecca was quiet for a long moment. Anna, if you're serious, if this is real, Williams Tech can't survive losing Meridian's backing. I know. It would destroy everything I've built. I know. Please. I'm begging you. Don't do this. Give me one reason why I shouldn't. Because I'm your sister. You weren't my sister this morning when you posted about family success without the deadweight. Anna, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I was completely wrong. About which part? The part where you called me deadweight, or the part where you didn't know I was funding your success? Both. All of it. Anna, please. We can fix this. How? I'll make a public apology. I'll give you credit. I'll tell everyone the truth. What truth? That you've been supporting the company. That I've been supporting the company? Rebecca, I don't just support the company. I own the company. You work for me. The line went dead. 3 hours later, Rebecca called back. Anna, I talked to my lawyers. They confirmed that Meridian Ventures filed liquidation papers this afternoon. Yes, they did. Anna, this will bankrupt me. I'll lose everything. I know. Please. Tell me what you want. I'll do anything. I want you to understand that success doesn't give you the right to treat people as disposable. You're right. You're absolutely right. I want you to understand that family should matter more than your personal brand. It does. It will. I want you to understand that the person you called deadweight was the person making your success possible. I understand. Anna, I'm so sorry. I was horrible. I was wrong about everything. But you don't really understand, do you, Rebecca? Because if you did, you wouldn't have treated me that way in the first place. I understand now. Because now you know I have money. No. Because I realize I was wrong about you. Prove it. How? Make another LinkedIn post. Tell your 15,000 followers that Williams Tech was built entirely on investment capital from your sister. Tell them that the deadweight you left behind was actually the person funding your success. Anna, I can't do that. Why not? Because it would ruin my reputation. It would make me look like a fraud. More of a fraud than taking credit for success you didn't earn? Anna, please. There has to be another way. There is no other way, Rebecca. The papers have been filed. Williams Tech has 30 days to return $205 million or face bankruptcy. What if I gave you equity? Made you a public partner? I already own 52% of your company, Rebecca. I don't need you to give me equity. Then what do you want? I want you to experience what it feels like to lose everything while someone you trusted watches it happen. Anna, please. I'm begging you. Like I was begging you to stop calling me deadweight? I never knew it hurt you. Because you never asked. You never cared enough to ask. I hung up. Within an hour my phone was buzzing with calls from other family members. Mom, Dad, Uncle Jim, Cousin Mark. All of them had heard from Rebecca. All of them wanting to understand what was happening. I let them all go to voicemail. By tomorrow, the business press would be reporting that Williams Tech was facing a financial crisis. By next week, Rebecca's personal brand as a visionary entrepreneur would be destroyed. By next month, the company she'd built would be gone. And I would go back to my job at the literacy nonprofit helping underserved kids learn to read. Because despite what Rebecca believed, some things were more important than being seen as successful. Though I had to admit watching the bankruptcy notices arrive was going to be satisfying. Just like I'd told Blackstone they would be.
At least wear some real jewelry for once, my mother-in-law, Margaret, said with a sigh, looking at my simple pearl necklace like it was worthless. It's Christmas dinner, not a quick trip to the store. I touched the pearls gently. I had bought them with my first investment profit, so they meant a lot to me. But instead of arguing, I just smiled and kept setting the table. My name is Olivia. I'm 35 years old, and for the past 8 years, my husband's family has called me a gold digger. They think I married Andrew just for his family's money. His parents, Margaret and Robert, own Harrison Technologies, a big company. But what they don't know is that they are completely wrong about me. Be careful with those plates, dear, Margaret added. They're expensive. Try not to break them like last year. That never happened. Margaret liked to make up stories to make me look bad. Robert, my father-in-law, barely looked up from his phone. He was probably checking stock prices again. Andrew caught my eye and gave me a small smile, as if to say, I know, I'm sorry. We had agreed long ago to let his parents believe whatever they wanted for now. Then, Andrew's sister, Amanda, walked in, swinging her designer handbag. Mom, did you tell Olivia about the charity gala next week? Oh, wait, never mind. It's $1,000 per plate. She probably wouldn't be interested. I didn't want to make her feel uncomfortable, Margaret said, patting Amanda's hand. It's not her usual crowd. I held back a laugh. If only they knew that I had bought an entire table at that event, through my own investment company. Dinner went exactly as I expected. Margaret kept talking about Amanda's achievements while making small, cutting comments about my humble background. Robert hardly spoke, focused on his phone. Did you see the Wilson family's new yacht? Amanda asked while eating. Now that's success. Not like some people who can't even afford proper jewelry. She glanced at my pearls. I took a sip of wine, thinking about how I had actually bought a shipping company last summer. The Wilsons' yacht. It was parked at one of my marinas. But I didn't say anything, not yet. Well, Margaret sighed dramatically, not everyone is born into wealth. Some people have to marry into it. Just then, Robert suddenly looked up from his phone, his face pale. The stock, he muttered. It's dropping. The table went silent. Harrison Technologies stock had been unstable lately. I knew this well. After all, I had been secretly buying shares for years. It's just a small dip, Dad, Andrew said. You don't understand, Robert snapped. Someone has been buying large amounts of our stock. If this continues, we could lose control of the company. Margaret's fork hit her plate. Who would do that? Probably Phoenix Investments, Amanda guessed, naming their biggest rival. I wiped my mouth with my napkin. It was time. Actually, I said, it's not Phoenix Investments. They all turned to me. Margaret scoffed. And how would you know? She gave a mocking smile. You should just be grateful Andrew married you. A gold digger should know her place. The room felt colder. Andrew started to defend me, but I gently touched his arm. It's okay, I said, pulling out my phone. I think it's time you all knew the truth. Robert narrowed his eyes. Knew what? I turned my phone screen toward them. I know who's been buying Harrison Technologies shares because it's me. Through my investment firm, I now own 60% of the company. Silence. Margaret's face turned pale. Robert stared at my phone, shocked. Amanda opened her mouth but said nothing. But, that's impossible, Margaret stammered. You're just a gold digger? I finished for her. Actually, I was a successful investor long before I met Andrew. The humble background you mock? It taught me the value of smart investments, and now your company's future depends on me. Robert grabbed my phone with shaking hands. This can't be real. You're bluffing. Check your records, I said calmly. Look up Stellar Investments. I started building my portfolio at 22, and Harrison Technologies is just my latest purchase. These pearls. I bought them with my first investment profit. That simple car I drive, I own the dealership. And just like that, the room fell completely silent. Margaret's crystal wine glass shook as she set it down. You're lying, she said, but her voice wasn't as strong as usual. This must be some kind of trick. I pulled up another screen on my phone. Do you want to see the official documents? I have the ownership certificates, the reports from the last 5 years. Everything is right here. Under the table, Andrew squeezed my hand, a small, silent way of showing support. He had always known the truth. He had watched me build my business while his family ignored me, thinking I was just a pretty face who married for money. But the company meetings, Robert stammered, his face turning red. You never came to any of them. I did, I said, taking another sip of wine. Remember Sarah Chen, the quiet woman from Stellar Investments who sat in the back, the one no one ever paid attention to? I smiled as realization dawned on his face. She was my representative. I wanted to observe the company before making myself known. Amanda let out a nervous laugh. This is crazy. Dad, you can't believe her. She's obviously making it up. Check your phone, Amanda, I suggested. The news just went public 10 minutes ago. It should be everywhere by now. As if on cue, everyone's phones started buzzing with notifications. Andrew pulled out his phone and read aloud. Breaking news. Stellar Investments CEO Olivia Harrison revealed as majority shareholder of Harrison Technologies. Stock prices surged 15% on announcement. Margaret grabbed her phone and started scrolling quickly. With every swipe, her face grew paler. This can't be happening, she whispered. All this time? Yes, I confirmed. While you were mocking my simple clothes and thinking I wasn't good enough, I was building something real. Those charity events you thought I couldn't afford, I was secretly funding them for years. Robert slumped back in his chair, looking exhausted. Why? He asked. Why didn't you tell us? Would you have believed me? I asked softly. From the beginning you decided I was a gold digger, someone who didn't deserve your son or your family name. I tried to show you who I was, but you never listened. I let out a small sigh. Last Christmas, remember when I suggested updating the company's technology? You laughed and told me to stick to dinner parties. Phoenix Investments took that same idea and increased their market share by 30%. Amanda, who had been quiet, suddenly stood. This doesn't change anything, she snapped, though her voice shook. Money doesn't buy class. You'll never be one of us. I looked at her with a small smile. You're right, Amanda. I'm not one of you. I didn't inherit my wealth or marry into it. I built it. And now I own your family's company. Robert leaned forward, fear clear in his eyes. What are you going to do? He asked. You're not going to sell it, are you? That depends, I said, pulling a folder from my purse and placing it on the table. This is my plan for the company. Harrison Technologies has potential, but it needs big changes. Margaret hesitated before reaching for the folder. And if we refuse? You won't, Andrew said, speaking firmly for the first time. Because Olivia's plan will save the company. I've seen it. It's brilliant like everything else she does. I spread out the documents. First, we'll fix the gender pay gap. Then, we'll update the technology like I suggested last year. Finally, we'll start a scholarship program to help young investors from low-income backgrounds. Robert picked up a page and stared at the numbers. These projections, they're incredible. They're actually a safe estimate, I said. If everything goes right, we'll make even more. The room fell silent as my in-laws took in the truth. Everything they believed about me was falling apart. All those times, Margaret murmured, when you helped with charity events, when you suggested investments, you actually knew what you were doing. I did, I said simply. And now you have a choice. We can work together and make this company stronger, or you can fight me and watch everything you built fall apart. What's it going to be? 6 months after that fateful Christmas dinner, I sat in what used to be Robert's office, now mine, reviewing the latest quarterly reports. Harrison Technologies had transformed beyond anyone's expectations, except perhaps my own. The door opened and Margaret stepped in, carrying 2 cups of coffee. This had become our weekly ritual, though it had taken months to get here. The numbers look good, she said, placing a cup on my desk. Her voice carried none of its former condescension. Better than good, I replied, gesturing to the charts on my screen. We're up 40% since implementing the new tech infrastructure. The employee satisfaction scores have doubled, and our charitable foundation just awarded its first round of scholarships. Margaret sat down, her fingers nervously tracing the edge of her cup. I've been thinking about last Christmas, she said quietly. About how wrong we were about you. About everything. I looked at her, remembering the woman who'd spent years trying to diminish me. She looked smaller now, but somehow more real. It wasn't personal, I said. You were protecting what you thought was yours. No, she shook her head. It was worse than that. We were snobs, convinced that wealth only counted if it came with the right background. When Robert told me yesterday that he's stepping down and fully supporting your leadership, I realized how much we changed. The company had indeed changed. Robert, after initially struggling with the transition, had become one of my strongest supporters. His years of experience, combined with my fresh perspective, had created a synergy no one expected. Amanda took longer to come around. But last week, she'd approached me about joining the Scholarship Foundation's board. I want to learn, she'd said, without a trace of her former smugness. I want to understand how you build all this. The sound of laughter from the hallway drew our attention. Andrew appeared in the doorway grinning. The new tech team's prototypes just tested off the charts, he announced. Even Phoenix Investments is asking for a partnership. I smiled, remembering how they'd once been our biggest rivals. Now, under my leadership, we were redefining industry cooperation. Have them send over the proposal, I said. And Andrew? Make sure they know about the scholarship program. I want this partnership to benefit more than just the bottom line. Margaret watched this exchange with something like wonder. You know, she said, I used to worry that Andrew was making a mistake, marrying someone. Well, someone like you. I couldn't have been more wrong. You've not only preserved our family's legacy, you've made it better. I thought about the day I met Andrew, both of us young analysts at different firms. He'd seen past my humble clothes and packed lunches, recognizing the ambition that drove me. While his family saw a gold digger, he saw a partner. The Christmas gala is coming up, I mentioned, turning back to my computer. I think it's time we announce the expansion of the scholarship program. Double the recipients, focus on women in tech. Margaret's eyes widened. That's wonderful. I'd like to help if you'll let me. I may not understand all the technical aspects, but I know about building relationships. I nodded, acknowledging her offer. This was the Margaret I'd hoped existed beneath the prejudices, someone who, when given the chance, could rise above her own limitations. Robert appeared in the doorway, looking energized despite his recent decision to step back. The board just unanimously approved your proposal for the Green Tech Initiative, he announced. I've never seen them so excited about a new direction. I stood up, gathering my files. Then let's not keep them waiting. We have a company to run and lives to change. As we walked to the boardroom, I caught my reflection in the window. I was still wearing my pearl necklace, not because it was simple or modest, but because it reminded me of where I came from and what I'd built. The holiday decorations were already going up in the office, though Christmas was months away. This year would be different. No more snide remarks or subtle digs. Instead, we'd celebrate as a real family, one built on respect and understanding rather than assumptions and prejudice. Andrew caught up with us, slipping his hand into mine. "Ready to shake things up some more?" he whispered. I smiled, touching my pearls with my free hand. "Always," I replied, "but this time we're all moving forward together." The boardroom doors opened to a future none of us had imagined last Christmas, one where success wasn't measured by last names or inheritance, but by vision, determination, and the courage to prove everyone wrong. James left me a message. "Living with Diana now. Don't bother asking for money. I've made sure there's nothing left to split." I stared at my phone, holding my coffee steady. Sunlight streamed into the kitchen, lighting up the same countertop where we'd had breakfast just yesterday. 15 years of marriage, and this was how he ended it, with a text. I sighed and typed back, "Thanks for letting me know." I added a thumbs up emoji for good measure. His response came immediately. "That's it? No crying? No begging. Diana was right, you really are cold." I set my phone down. Diana, his 28-year-old assistant, had been in his life for only 8 months. She had no idea what she was getting into. I almost felt bad for her. Almost. I opened my laptop and pulled up an old email from Marcus, our accountant. 3 months ago, he'd warned me about strange activity in our company's finances. I had told him to investigate. Now I was glad I did. I dialed Marcus. He picked up on the second ring. "Olivia, I was just about to call you. The audit report came in this morning." I smiled. Perfect timing. James just told me he's moved in with Diana, and there's nothing left to split. Marcus sighed. He actually put that in writing. With an emoji, I confirmed. "Let's move forward with everything we discussed." "Are you sure? Once we report this." He made his choice, Marcus. Now I'll face the consequences. Just then, my phone buzzed again. Another text from James. "I'll send someone to pack up your things. Diana wants to redecorate." I chuckled, thinking about the financial evidence Marcus had been gathering. Hidden money, fake accounts, offshore transfers. James thought he was clever, but he forgot one thing. I helped build our company. I knew everything. The doorbell rang. I checked the security camera. Diana stood there, clutching her designer handbag. Bold move. I opened the door with a polite smile. "Diana? What a surprise." She hesitated, then said, "James asked me to measure for new curtains. He said you'd be moving out soon." I stepped aside. "Go ahead, but maybe wait until after the audit." She froze. "The audit?" I feigned surprise. "Oh, James didn't tell you. The IRS is very interested in some recent transactions." Her face paled. I should check with James first. "Probably a good idea," I said lightly. "Oh, and ask him about the Peterson account. Just something to think about." Diana practically ran to her car. I watched her speed off, knowing exactly what would happen next. She called James in a panic. He'd reassure her, blame me, tell her not to worry. But then she'd look up the Peterson account. She'd see how its CEO went to prison for fraud. She'd realize James had copied the same tricks. A new text from James appeared. "What did you say to Diana?" I snapped a picture of the audit report and sent it. 3 dots appeared as he typed. Then they disappeared. Then they came back. Finally, "We need to talk." "Yes," I replied. "Bring your lawyer." I set my phone down and looked out the window. James had always loved this house, loved the way it made him look successful. But he'd underestimated me. That was about to change. Bennett and Associates took up the entire 15th floor of a sleek downtown building. I sat in a conference room, watching James shift uncomfortably in his expensive suit. Across the table, his lawyer, Gregory, flipped through the audit report, his expression growing more tense by the second. "This is ridiculous," James snapped. "You're trying to destroy everything I built." "Everything we built," I corrected, keeping my voice calm. "Or did you forget who handled the clients while you were busy impressing Diana?" Marcus, our longtime accountant, sat beside me, papers neatly spread out in front of him. James was only now realizing just how much Marcus knew. "Mrs. Parker," Gregory began carefully, "surely we can discuss this. My client is willing to." "Your client," I interrupted, "has been moving money into secret accounts for months. He stole client funds, faked reports, and committed tax fraud. Should I go on?" James's face turned red. "You can't prove that." Marcus slid a USB drive across the table. "Actually, we can. Every shady transaction, every fake document, it's all here. Including the offshore account he opened in Diana's name last month. Diana, who had come along expecting to support James, suddenly looked confused. What offshore account? She asked. James waved a hand. It's nothing, baby. Just business. I let out a quiet laugh. Oh, you mean transferring $2.3 million into an account under your girlfriend's name? That business? Diana's face paled. James, what is she talking about? Don't let her manipulate you, James said, but I could see the fear in his eyes. He knew we had him cornered. Sarah, my lawyer, finally spoke. Mr. Parker, the IRS has already been notified. They're very interested in your creative bookkeeping. James's eyes met mine. You wouldn't. You'll go down too. The firm will be ruined. Now, James, I said. I've already given full proof of my cooperation. The board is ready to move forward. You're the only one going down. Diana suddenly stood up. I need some air. She grabbed her purse and rushed out. Diana, wait. James called after her, but she didn't stop. He turned back to me, his face twisted with anger. Happy now? You've ruined everything. No, James, you did that yourself. Gregory leaned over and whispered something to James. His shoulders slumped. He had lost. What do you want? James finally asked. Sarah slid a document across the table. Full disclosure of all assets. Immediate resignation from the firm. A clean divorce with fair division of legal assets. Sign this, and we might keep you out of prison. James stared at the paper, his hands shaking. And if I don't? Then we report everything to the IRS and FBI, Marcus said simply. Silence filled the room. James picked up the pen, hesitated, then signed. His usual confident signature now shaky. You'll need to leave the house immediately, Sarah added. Your company access ends today. James stood up, trying to fix his jacket like he still had control. You think you've won. You're nothing without me. I stayed seated. That's where you're wrong, James. I built this company too. The difference is, I did it honestly. He stormed out. Through the glass walls, I saw Diana waiting by the elevators. She didn't even look at him. Instead, she kept pressing the down button, eager to get away. I gathered my things, the weight of the morning settling in. Marcus gave my arm a reassuring squeeze. You did the right thing, Olivia. I nodded, watching as James and Diana left in separate elevators. I know, I just wish he'd made better choices. As I stepped out of the conference room, I lifted my head high. The worst was over. Now it was time to rebuild my firm, my life, and my future. But this time, on my own terms. 6 months after the meeting that changed everything, I stood in my office overlooking the city skyline. The firm had not only survived James' departure but was thriving. Our clients had appreciated my transparency during the transition, and most had chosen to stay. My phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. Just heard from Gregory. James took the plea deal. 3 years, minimum security, plus full restitution. I set my phone down, letting the news sink in. It wasn't satisfaction I felt, but rather a sense of closure. The man I'd married, the one I'd built a life with, had chosen his path. Now he was facing the consequences. Diana, as it turned out, had been smarter than anyone gave her credit for. Once she understood her name had been used in James's schemes, she cooperated fully with the investigation. Last I heard, she'd moved back to her hometown and was working for a small accounting firm, legitimately this time. A knock at my door pulled me from my thoughts. Sarah Bennett stood there, holding a manila envelope. It's done, she said, placing the envelope on my desk. The divorce is final. The house and your share of the firm are secure. I picked up the envelope but didn't open it. Have you heard from him? Sarah shook her head. Not since he accepted the plea deal. His lawyer says he's different now. Quieter. I thought about the James I'd known, confident, charming, and utterly convinced of his own cleverness. Prison would be a harsh awakening. The board meeting went well, I said, changing the subject. We're expanding the compliance department, implementing new oversight procedures. Learning from experience, Sarah smiled. Making sure it never happens again. I corrected. That evening I walked through my house, my home, seeing it with new eyes. The spaces James and I had shared were slowly becoming mine alone. I'd redecorated the living room, planted a garden in the backyard, turned his study into a library. Each change felt like reclaiming a piece of myself. My doorbell rang, and I opened it to find Marcus holding a bottle of wine. "Thought you could use this," he said, stepping inside. "Just got word that the last of the restitution payments has been processed. All affected clients have been made whole." I led him to the kitchen, pulling out 2 glasses. That's worth celebrating. As we sat on my back patio, watching the sunset, Marcus cleared his throat. "You know, when I first noticed the discrepancies in the accounts, I was afraid to tell you. Thought it might break you." I smiled, sipping my wine. The old me might have broken, but I'm not that person anymore. "No," he agreed, "you're stronger." A text lit up my phone from James's sister, Emma. She'd stood by me through everything, choosing truth over family loyalty. "Just checked on the house," she wrote. "He's doing okay. Teaches accounting to other inmates now. Says he's sorry." I didn't respond. His apology, while probably sincere, came too late. The time for sorry had passed. "What's next for you?" Marcus asked, noticing my distraction. I looked out at my garden, where new flowers were starting to bloom. "Growth. The firm is expanding. I'm mentoring young accountants, teaching them to spot the red flags I missed. Something good should come from all this." And personally, I thought about the art classes I'd started taking, the travel plans I was making, the life I was building on my own terms. "I'm learning to trust again," I said finally, "not others, myself." As if on cue, my phone buzzed with another message. This one was from an unknown number. "I'm sorry. For everything. Jay." I deleted it without responding. The time for his words had passed. Now was the time for my actions. Marcus raised his glass. "To new beginnings?" "To wisdom," I corrected, clinking my glass against his. "And to knowing your own worth." Later that night, after Marcus left, I sat in my library, the room that once housed James's schemes and secrets. On the wall hung a new piece of art, a painting I created in my classes. It wasn't perfect, but it was authentically mine. I picked up the manila envelope Sarah had brought earlier, finally ready to look at the divorce papers. As I read through them, I felt no sadness, no regret. Instead, I felt peace. James had thought he was writing the end of our story when he sent that text 6 months ago. Instead, he'd only written the end of his chapter. My story was just beginning. Standing at my window, watching the city lights twinkle in the distance, I smiled. The audit report that had changed everything now sat in a drawer, a reminder that sometimes the greatest acts of love are the ones we do for ourselves. Like choosing truth over comfort, strength over silence, and growth over stagnation. Tomorrow, I would wake up and continue building the life I deserved. And this time, I would do it on my own terms. I was watering my roses when my mother-in-law, Diana, walked in like she owned the place. She carried her fancy handbag and wore a smile that always meant trouble. "Alexandra, dear," she said sweetly, "I have great news." I put down my watering can, already suspicious. After 8 years of marriage to her son, Michael, I knew her great news was never good for me. "I've sold the house," she announced proudly, "at a great price. The buyers will take it in 30 days. I froze. Our home. The house Michael and I had spent years fixing up. The place where we planned to start a family. And here was Diana, acting like it was just another casual topic. "Interesting," I said, keeping my voice calm. "And how did you sell a house that isn't yours?" Diana smiled wider. "Oh, don't be difficult, dear. The house is in Michael's name, and as his mother, I'm just helping him make smart choices. He needs a fresh start. This place is holding him back. The money will help him start his new life with Jessica." My heart stopped. Jessica, Michael's 25-year-old assistant, the one Deanna kept praising. "Michael agreed to this?" I asked, already knowing the answer. Lately, he'd been distant, working late, barely talking to me. "Of course," Diana said, pulling out some papers. "He signed the agreement last week. Jessica helped him see reason. They're perfect together. Sometimes we have to accept change, Alexandra. You just don't fit in our family anymore." I felt oddly calm. Diana had no idea of the conversation I'd had with Michael's father before he passed away, or the legal papers he left me. "You're right, Diana," I said softly. "Things do change." She looked confused for a moment but quickly recovered. "I'm glad you understand. The buyers want to see the house next week. Make sure it looks nice." I picked up my watering can. "Of course. I'll make sure everything is exactly as it should be." She hesitated, probably expecting tears or a fight. Instead, I was calm, and that unsettled her. Good, she said, though her smile wasn't as confident. You should start packing. As she left, I made 2 phone calls, one to James Harrison, our family lawyer, and another to Robert Chen, the private investigator I had hired 3 months ago. That evening, Michael came home and looked surprised to see me calmly reading a book. Your mother stopped by, I said. She told me about the house. Michael ran a hand through his hair, a nervous habit. Alex, I can explain. No need, I interrupted. I get it. You and Jessica need a fresh start. This house is in your way. That's what your mother said, right? He looked guilty. It's not like that. Things haven't been good between us. Jessica, she understands me. She's 25, Michael. You're 42, I said. But that's not really the issue, is it? The issue is that you think you can sell this house without my permission. The house is in my name, he said firmly. Mom found cash buyers. It's done, Alex. I'm sorry, but maybe this is for the best. I stood up, carefully marking my page in my book. You know what's funny about clean breaks, Michael? They only work if everything is actually clean. He frowned, confused. What does that mean? You'll find out soon enough, I said, walking upstairs. Oh, and don't worry about the house being ready for the buyers next week. I'll make sure everything is exactly as it should be. As I climbed the stairs, I felt his eyes on me, trying to figure out why I wasn't falling apart. Like his mother, he had no idea what was coming. The next morning, I met James Harrison at his office downtown. He had been the family's lawyer for years and knew all of Michael's father's final decisions. They really think they can sell the house? James asked, adjusting his glasses as he looked over the listing agreement. Diana already found buyers, I said, sipping my coffee. She expects me to have everything ready for a walkthrough next week. James shook his head and pulled out a thick folder. I assume you haven't told them about this? He placed an important document on the desk. I smiled. Not yet. Howard asked me to keep this quiet unless absolutely necessary. I think this situation qualifies. 2 years ago, before he passed away, my father-in-law called me to his hospital room. Unlike Diana, he wasn't blind to Michael's flaws. He worried about his son's decisions and what might happen when he was gone. I've made arrangements, Howard told me. The house isn't just in Michael's name. I made sure of that. You'll be protected. James has the paperwork. Looking at those documents now, I felt grateful for his foresight. The house had been a wedding gift, but it was legally owned by both Michael and me. That meant Michael couldn't sell it without my consent. Diana's listing agreement was worthless. James picked up his phone. Should I call Diana's real estate agent now, or do you want to let them carry on a little longer? I thought about Diana's smug smile and Michael's betrayal. Let's wait, I decided. I want to see what else they try. That afternoon, my private investigator, Robert Chen, sent me his latest report. The evidence was solid: hotel receipts, secret meetings, and proof that Michael had been using his firm's money to pay for his affair with Jessica. I forwarded it all to James and went home, where I found moving boxes stacked in the foyer. Diana had sent them as a hint that I should start packing. Instead, I went to my office, unlocking the secret compartment in my desk. Inside were the most important papers: the house deed, Howard's letters, and the USB drive containing Robert's findings. Diana might control people with lies and manipulation, but I had something stronger: facts and legal truth. That night, Michael came home late, smelling like expensive perfume. He hesitated when he saw the moving boxes still untouched. Alex, he said in a patronizing tone, you're making this harder on yourself. Mom is just trying to help. I glanced up from my laptop, where I was reviewing the latest photos of him and Jessica at a hotel that afternoon. How thoughtful of her, I said. And how was your meeting with the Thompson client today? He froze, just for a second. There was no Thompson client. He had used that excuse to meet Jessica. Fine, he said quickly. Just fine. Look, about the house. Don't worry about the house, Michael, I cut him off. Everything will work out exactly as it should. His eyes narrowed. What does that mean? Why are you so calm? I closed my laptop and met his gaze. Your father taught me a lot before he passed. He understood people. Marriage. Trust. Michael shifted uncomfortably. Howard had always seen his weaknesses and had tried to make him a better man. In the end, he had planned for the worst. Dad's been gone for 2 years, Michael muttered. This has nothing to do with him. You'd be surprised, I said, heading upstairs. That night, I remembered Howard's last words. Don't let them bully you, Alex. You're stronger than all of them combined. Back then, I didn't fully understand what he meant. Now I did. The next morning, Diana arrived unannounced again, this time with the buyers. A young couple awkwardly followed her as she proudly showed them around, talking about all the changes they could make. I let her finish before speaking up. I hope you haven't paid a deposit yet, I said to the couple, because this house isn't actually for sale. Diana spun around, furious. Alexandra, don't be ridiculous. Michael already. Michael, I interrupted, doesn't have the legal right to sell this house without me. The buyers looked worried and quickly left. Diana's face turned red with anger. How dare you interfere? This sale is what Michael needs. I smiled, thinking of the documents safely in James's office. No, Diana. What Michael needs is to learn that actions have consequences. And trust me, those lessons are just beginning. The following Monday, I sat in James Harrison's conference room, watching Diana and Michael's faces as they processed what the lawyer had just told them. The color had drained from Diana's face, while Michael kept shaking his head in disbelief. This can't be legal, Diana sputtered, her manicured fingers crumpling the property deed James had placed before them. Howard would never. Howard did exactly that, James interrupted, sliding his reading glasses up his nose. The house requires both Michael and Alexandra's signatures for any sale to be valid. Furthermore, he pulled out another document. Howard's will specifically states that in the event of any attempted unauthorized sale, full ownership transfers to Alexandra alone. Michael slumped in his chair. Dad knew, he muttered. He knew I'd messed this up somehow. He knew his son. I corrected quietly. And he knew his wife. I looked pointedly at Diana, who was still shaking her head in denial. That's not all, James continued, producing the file Robert Chen had compiled. We also have evidence of financial impropriety at the firm, specifically related to expenses charged for non-existent client meetings. Michael's head snapped up. I could see the moment he realized what that meant. All those hotel rooms and expensive dinners with Jessica, charged to the firm's accounts. The board of partners would be very interested in these expense reports, James noted. Not to mention the ethics committee of the State Bar Association. You wouldn't, Michael whispered, but his voice lacked conviction. No, I wouldn't, I agreed. Not if you agree to my terms. Diana tried to rally. Terms? You ungrateful. Quiet, Mom, Michael cut her off, surprising us all. For the first time, I saw real fear in his eyes. What terms, Alex? I laid out my conditions clearly. First, you'll sign a quitclaim deed transferring the house entirely to me. Second, you'll agree to an uncontested divorce with a fair division of our other assets. Third, I turned to Diana, you will never again interfere in my life or my property. And if we refuse? Diana demanded, though her voice trembled slightly. I opened my laptop and turned it to face them. On the screen was a draft email to the firm's board of partners, with Robert's full investigation attached. My finger hovered over the send button. Your choice, I said simply. The fight seemed to drain out of Michael all at once. You really planned for everything, didn't you? No, I corrected him. Your father did. He loved you, Michael, but he saw who you really were. He wanted to protect both of us, me from your betrayal, and you from your own worst impulses. Diana stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. This is blackmail. This is consequences, James replied calmly. I've drawn up all the necessary paperwork. Shall we proceed? An hour later, it was done. Michael signed everything without further protest, while Diana sat in stony silence. As they stood to leave, Michael paused at the door. I'm sorry, Alex, he said quietly. For what it's worth, I really am sorry. I know, I replied, but sometimes sorry isn't enough. After they left, James handed me the final signed documents. Howard would be proud, he said warmly. You handled this exactly as he hoped you would. That evening, I sat on my back porch, looking out at the garden Howard had helped me plant years ago. My phone buzzed with a text from Michael. Jessica had left him after learning about the scandal at the firm. Diana had apparently retreated to her sister's house in Palm Springs, telling her friends she needed a spiritual retreat. I poured myself a glass of Howard's favorite whiskey, the bottle he'd given me for safekeeping before he died. You were right, I said to the quiet evening air, about everything. 2 months later, I transformed the house into truly my own space. Michael's law firm had quietly asked him to resign to avoid public scandal, and he'd moved to another state to start over. Diana's carefully curated social circle had crumbled once the truth about her schemes came out. As for me, I was finally at peace in my home, surrounded by memories of the one person in that family who had truly cared about doing the right thing. Howard's last gift hadn't just been the house. It had been the strength to stand up for myself and the wisdom to know when to use it. Sometimes, I thought as I tended to my roses, the best revenge isn't fighting back immediately. It's waiting patiently until your opponents have dug their own graves, then simply stepping aside to let them fall in. The house stands as a testament to that lesson, and to the power of quiet strength over loud manipulation. Diana and Michael had underestimated me, just as they had underestimated Howard's foresight. Their mistake had cost them everything, while I remained exactly where I belonged, in the home that was always meant to be mine.